Good morning, y'all. Welcome to the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty FF's dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew, and you can find me on Reddit at EAF_Marine and on Twitter at DrewDotsonNFL. Unfortunately, my co-host Dave couldn't be here with me today. He had some stuff he needed to take care of, so I will be rolling solo today. I hope that's all right with y'all. Let's just start off with a week in review. There was a decent number of coaching changes that went on this week. The earliest one was Rex Ryan got hired, brought in Greg Roman from the 49ers, and a lot of people are freaking out about their Sammy Watkins shares. And somewhat understandably, is Rex Ryan and Greg Roman haven't exactly been the most offensive, haven't produced the best offensive numbers in their time, but neither of them have had the best offensive weapons to use either. I mean, Greg Roman's best wide receivers have been Anquan Bolden. Rex Ryan has had Percy Harvin and Eric Decker, I guess. I mean, going before here, you had San Antonio Holmes and not the prime of his career. And I think that regardless of the situation, I think Sammy Watkins is still absolutely worth holding on to. I mean, he was worth the 101 for a reason. He was a top draft pick. He was a top dynasty pick for a reason. This guy is going to prove to be a valuable dynasty asset for a long time. You know, and I mean, Rex Ryan said it in his presser when he got hired. He said, "We have Sammy Watkins. We're going to throw the ball." Even if they don't do it that well, they did it well enough with Kyle Orton. I think this means EJ Manuel might get another chance. I don't know how much that's worth. EJ Manuel's not exactly a prime name in the dynasty community anymore, but if you've got him, hold on to him for now. See how it plays out. If you guys still have free agency that goes on before the draft, pick him up, hang on to him. If you have free agency before the draft, that's weird. I'm not a big fan of it, but do what y'all want to do. As for running backs, I know they talked about wanting to keep CJ Spiller, but I can't honestly see Spiller wanting to stay. Fred Jackson is going on 100 years old, basically. I think even if he goes for another year, they're not going to give him enough carries to be fantasy relevant, and he's going to be 34 years old, which makes him absolutely not dynasty relevant. So that means we're looking at either a free agent or a draft pick back, or Bryce Brown might have some relevance, which I know a lot of people were on the Bryce Brown train this year when they traded for him, but I don't see it. I could see it before when Marone picked him up and that was going to be their guy, but if he couldn't even get on the field with the coaches that chose him, then what chance does he have with a bunch of coaches that had no part in picking him? Again, I'm not going to drop him, but I'm not holding out hope. I think this could be a great spot for somebody like Stephen Ridley to land, a straight power back. He's shown that he can put up 1,000-yard seasons with 10 touchdowns. That's easily doable in a Rex Ryan offense, in a Greg Roman offense. Look what they did with Frank Gore. Look what they did with Chris Ivory. And look what they did with old boy went to Tennessee, Powell. They made him look like a decent fantasy starter. So imagine what they could do with somebody like Ridley or Ingram, provided New Orleans doesn't try and re-sign him. I think if a good enough running back goes there, I think that could be a prime fantasy landing spot. Another coaching hire that happened is first a coach firing was John Fox left Denver. John Fox and pretty much his entire coaching staff. I'm not going to try and guess what Peyton Manning is going to do. I think only he knows what he's going to do right now. What I do know is I think this spells the doom for Emmanuel Sanders' dynasty value. I've seen some people trying to trade him right now, and they can't get anything for him. To me, that almost spells a hold. Hold him till next season and see if Peyton can somehow give him some value for a minute, just long enough to sell him for any sort of value. Because right now you're not getting anything for him, even after coming off a huge season. I think his value is entirely dependent on Peyton Manning. And I didn't believe in his talent there. I didn't believe in it even with Peyton Manning, unfortunately, because I ended up selling the one share I had of him last offseason for way too cheap. That was another one of my dynasty trade fails. I sold him in the draft for like a third-round pick, and that one hurt me. But what are you going to do? I don't think Julius Thomas is going to stay in Denver. I think he's going to go sign somewhere else. I'm not really gonna talk on Julius Thomas too long. I think we can talk about him more as free agency approaches. But another decent coaching change that happened was with the Jets. They brought in Todd Bowles and Chan Gailey, and I think Chan Gailey is actually an excellent offensive hire for them. I think it gives a lot of extra value to Harvin if they keep him, and definitely to Eric Decker, and to whatever quarterback they have, whether it be Geno Smith, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston. I think they're going to have a lot more offensive production in New York than they haven't had in a long time, and I think that's definitely a situation you want to keep an eye on. As for Chicago hiring John Fox, I don't really have a good opinion on that yet. Obviously, your value players are still valuable. Alshon Jeffrey, Matt Forte, though he's getting old. Brandon Marshall, Marcus Wilson, and Martellus Bennett. I mean, their value is not dropping for me until I see something different happen on the field. Marshall and Forte's value drops me because they're getting older, but not because of the situation. Rumors are going around that Marshall might get traded. I can't see it happening. It would hurt them in terms of their cap, and he's a legitimate wide receiver when he's on the field. Why would you give that up? Jack Del Rio in Oakland. I think I want to wait and see who their offensive coordinator they bring in is, because I think that could end up being a real nice hotbed for offensive production coming in the future. Derek Carr has clearly proven that he can play at the NFL level, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens around there. For your Latavius Murray shares, we'll hit on that more because we did have a good submitted question for it. But I think that's all I'm going to hit on for the coaching hires, because I don't really know how the hire in San Francisco is going to affect their offense with hiring a defensive line coach. I think it says a lot that their defense is going to continue to put up strong. They're going to put up a strong defense continually, but that also has to do with the fact that they're packed with defensive superstars. I know a rumor was going around that Justin Smith was retiring. I haven't heard anything to confirm that, and until I see it, I'm not going to believe it. The last thing I had for a week in review was Ezekiel Elliott. If y'all watched the college football national championship game and he did not jump off the screen to you, I'd probably go get glasses. This guy is not available in this year's draft, but he's already looking to be the number one back in the 2016 draft. This guy is explosive. If he came out in this draft, he'd be my number 2 by far. He's just barely under Todd Gurley for me right now, especially with Gurley's injury. People are talking about Elliott potentially sitting out next season to keep from getting injured. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but everything I see from Elliott just has me super excited. Every part of his game is already at the NFL level for him, so he's definitely a player. If you don't watch enough college football, just watch Ohio State next year. Just watch him and get hyped, because this guy's gonna make an impact at the NFL level. I guess we'll go ahead and move on to our college player discussion as well. And this week we decided to, it's running back week, and I wanted to do Duke Johnson, the junior out of Miami. He's going to be 22 at the start of the 2015 season, and I hadn't looked at Duke Johnson a whole lot outside of kind of watching Miami here and there play. I hadn't sat down and really watched him specifically. And I was pleasantly surprised watching him. He's got real good burst. He's an excellent pass catcher. He might be the best pass catching back in this class. Between him, Jay Ajayi, Abdullah's a pretty capable pass catching back as well. He doesn't have an excellent top speed, but he has great short area speed. Very explosive. And if you guys watch Matt Waldman's RSP, his film room, I watched them break him down. I think Sigmund Bloom put it perfectly when he said that there's no hesitation in his game. You watch him play, there's none of that dancing around behind blocks. When he's thinking about what move he wants to make, his body's already doing it. And it makes for a very fluid runner. And he impressed me a good bit. And as I get further into this class, where I'm at right now, he's probably my number 4 back on my rankings, right behind Jay Ajayi. And granted, I'm kind of really high on Ajayi, and I can understand some that aren't. But Duke Johnson, the major hit I have on him is he has real ball security issues. That, and he's rather small for an NFL back. He doesn't have a lot of weight to him. He doesn't have a lot of strength to him. He's never going to be a power back at the NFL level. So he's going to have some sort of committee that he plays in, whether it's just they bring in somebody on short yardage, or it's a straight up timeshare like they have in Cincinnati. Regardless, I think he could see some real play, especially in your PPR leagues. This guy I can't really call it regular anymore because PPR is practically the standard. But in non-PPR leagues, Duke Johnson definitely takes a hit. He definitely drops down the board a decent amount. But in your PPR league, Duke Johnson has a significant amount of value. This is a guy that can catch 50, 60 passes in a season. I was very impressed with him. I didn't go in there with high expectations. I've seen him kind of all over the rookie draft boards, and I've never seen anybody kind of rave about him. It was always just, yeah, I'll take Duke Johnson here. He's another one of these backs in this class that I like, and that's it. Nothing like, hey, this guy does this great, this guy does that great. None of that. But in terms of just pass catching ability, if he only did that, he'd still have significant value. So if you haven't watched him, I'd go out and I'd watch a couple of his games. Nebraska game he showed a lot in that game, and it's against fairly high level competition too. Especially if you want to see what he does as a pass catcher, I would go ahead and I would take a look at that. There's still a number of wide receivers I'd take over him, just because I think there's a couple of wide receivers in this class that have fairly high upside, but he's definitely a first-round running back for me in this class. And this is actually going a good bit quicker talking by myself, I noticed. Hopefully this isn't too short of a show. Next, we're going to move on to our submitted questions for the week. And our first question comes from Capital Amber. And the question is, who are the players that you would sell high on in every league you own them? It would be nice to have a discussion on who is currently either at their peak value or at least the most value they'll ever be from here on out. I think that the best place to start this with is your aging running backs. Your Jamal Charles. If you have Jamal Charles, you need to be out there shopping him because he had another stellar season this year, and he still managed to decline in his value. Some of that has to do with a lot of wide receivers increasing in value, but in terms of just based on the running back value, he didn't increase. And that says to me that even with another good season, even if he has another stellar season, just because he gets older, he's going to lose value. So right now, unless you are itching for a championship, you've got all the pieces in, and you can't afford to lose him, I would be selling him. I would be trying to get anything you can. Your Marshawn Lynch's, I'd take anything I get for him. If I can get a third-round pick and a ham sandwich, sell him Marshawn Lynch. And I know some people are going to think that's stupid, and I can get that. To me, I can sell a third-round pick for a 2016 second. I can make that eventually appreciate. But I can also understand if you want to take Lynch and ride him into the sunset, because he's going to, if he plays another season, then he's going to probably put up running back one numbers, because even though he's getting older, he still looked every bit as good as he has in the past. On the wide receiver market, if you have Calvin Johnson right now, I'd be trading him around too. He's getting older. I think this is his year 30 season, 30-year-old season. I don't know how the best way to word that is, but he's clearly taken longer to recover from minor injuries. I think this is it's gonna get worse as time goes on, and you need to try and get whatever value you can for him now. Some other wide receivers you might want to try to sell high on would be I probably should have wrote a couple more people down on the wide receiver list. Normally, I'm a big fan of holding on to them, but I wouldn't be opposed to selling T.Y. Hilton right now. I think with Moncrief across from him, instead of Reggie Wayne and Hakeem Nicks, he could end up stealing some targets from him. But I can understand if you want to hold him. He's young, he's talented, and he could carry your team for a long time. Older wide receivers I'd be trying to sell right now, Jordy Nelson. I know he just put up statistically an amazing season, and it doesn't look like he shows any sign of slowing down, but he's approaching that Calvin Johnson age. It's better to sell now while the iron's hot than wait too long and not be able to get anything for him. Randall Cobb, I personally think he's going to leave Green Bay, and he's never going to have the season or the value that he has right now. I've seen him go in the top of the second round of startup drafts right now, and he's never going to have that value again. That's insane to me. Some other guys, Jeremy Maclin is a guy that could end up losing some of his value as Jordan Matthews improves, as they begin to target Matthews more. But Maclin's a guy I'm on the fence about selling, because if he adjusts to the system more, he could continue to have more value as well. And in terms of the tight ends, there's not really a lot of good sell highs right now. There's a lot of them that are sell lows because they're not worth anything. Antonio Gates, Vernon Davis, you're already way too late to sell low on. Julius Thomas, I guess, would be the guy I would be looking to sell high on right now, but he had kind of a lackluster season, and I don't know that you're going to get all that much for him. A lot of people still see him as the tight end 3, and if you can get that value for him, I'd be shipping him off. But I know a lot of people are real apprehensive about his situation right now, because even if he stays in Denver, then what happens when Peyton leaves? Or if he goes somewhere else, well, where's he going to go? So I would be shopping him, but I can see a lot of people not giving you a whole lot for him. And then the quarterback position, let me rephrase that. I would be selling Big Ben right now. Big Ben had an amazing season statistically, and I think people are going to overlook his age slightly. And I think you could get more for him than you probably should be able to. Granted, in one QB leagues, you're still not going to be able to get very much for a quarterback, just in general. But I would still be, trying to see what you can get for him. Matthew Stafford is a guy I'm not sure where his value is right now, but he's another guy I'd be looking to sell, because it's looking like he's not going to be throwing 600 passes a season anymore, and I think that's gonna hurt his value in the long run. And I think there's still the misconception that he's going to be able to put those numbers up that he used to, and I'm just not convinced that he's going to be able to. I like Stafford a lot as a quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be a top 5 quarterback in terms of dynasty value. So I think you need to see what you can get out of him right now. I'm sorry, my dog just farted on me. He stinks. I'm sure y'all wanted to know that. But this is what happens when Dave's not here for me to talk to. I have to be left alone with my own thoughts. And then Jules Dynasty left a kind of a follow-up question for it. And it says, in particular, folks seem to be very optimistic about almost all the sophomore wide receivers, except Marquise Lee, whose hype will quickly fade next season. I think like I said before, we've beaten the Kelvin Benjamin horse to death. If they bring in another wide receiver, I think he's gonna lose value, and I don't think he's gonna be able to replicate the touchdown production he had as a rookie. So I think that's gonna cause some of his hype to fall as well. I can't see Odell Beckham or I think Sammy Watkins is going to artificially lose hype because of the situation, even though he shouldn't. I would take that opportunity to actually buy him cheap, and I know a lot of people have him on their sell list right now. And if you can, get him at a discount, because when he starts putting up, those wide receiver 1 numbers again, and he's a first-round startup pick, then they're going to be regretting that trade. They're going to be regretting getting rid of him for, 80 cents on the dollar. The only Devontae Adams could potentially have his hype fade if Cobb stays in Green Bay, which I don't think he will, but it could happen. If Cobb stays, then Devontae Adams rides the pine. He'll play a number 3 role, and he'll see occasional fantasy success, but it won't be consistent enough to keep him high up in the startup value, or just in value for people in general. That, to me, will be an excellent buy opportunity more than anything. Because once Cobb does leave, or when Jordy retires, he's going to take over that number 2 or that number 1 role. And I think we've seen enough from Adams, especially in the playoffs, when he finally started, making some yards after the catch and making around some defenders, that he's going to be able to play at the NFL level. Robinson, Cooks, Moncrief, I think these are all guys that will live up to their hype. Martavis Bryant, I think, is a guy whose hype could fade, because I think his production is going to be fairly touchdown dependent. I think he's going to be he's going to be the Alfred Morris of the wide receivers. And I think people are going to get tired of that in terms of, trying to set their starting lineups, because nobody wants to get, 5 points because he caught one pass for 40 yards and then did nothing else for the rest of the game. It's like starting Robert Meacham back a couple years ago. And I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the next question. And by we, I mean us, me, and everybody listening. Next question comes from 35 Do. And that question is, Terrence West, what do you think his value is in trading? And honestly, it's not a whole lot. Your best bet is trying to trade him to the Crowell owner as a potential handcuff. And even then, if you can get a late second rounder for him, a mid second rounder for him, I'd be ecstatic. You might have to settle on a third rounder for him. But if you don't have to get him off your roster right now, or you don't think that that's enough to move him for, I would hold on to him and see if some hype builds up going into the offseason, going into training camp, going into the preseason, and wait for a chance to sell even a little bit high. Or just on the off chance that Crowell gets injured, let's hope not. But if he does, that's a chance for West to get enough carries to put up good numbers, because he's not terrible by himself. He's not Crowell, but he's not a horrible running back. That's enough for him to have good value. And I think you could sell him off like a lot of people did Niall Davis this year when Charles went down. And I think that would be a good way to cash out on his value. But I think right now, I think a late second round pick is slightly optimistic, but it's doable in a fair amount of leagues. I think we're going to move on to the next question, and that's comes from iRavage. It says, what are the top 3 reasons Kimball is afraid of joining the podcast? First reason, bears. There's bears everywhere. You never know where they're hiding. He's probably scared of them. I know the fear. I'm scared of bears too. They're bigger than me. They're furry. They'll eat me. It's no good. But it's not that he's afraid. We've talked about it a couple of times. Life's busy. Can't always put aside an hour on the weekend to do this, and then the work we put together. Doing the doing the script. Watching tape on the rookies, and just kind of talking about what we want to do. So it's not extremely time consuming, but if you don't have the mental energy at the end of the day from working, then I absolutely understand not being able to find time to do the podcast. But I've talked to him, and he's looking to do it in the future. Once things settle down. So I would look forward to us having some more guests on the podcast. I've also talked to some other people that have expressed interest in definitely spending some time on here with us. And our last question comes from Umaro 900. I'm particularly interested in opinions on people who may be seen / drafted as second or third round fantasy football rookie wide receiver talent, particularly Devin Smith and Philip Dorsett, followed by Nelson Agholor, because I said that wrong, and Justin Hardy. We'll start off with Smith, because Smith to me is he's ranked fairly high in a lot of people's rankings, like DraftNix and whatnot, and I don't see it. He seems to me kind of like this year's version of Richardson. He excels at the deep ball, which in terms of fantasy football is not going to do you a lot of good. Ask people who have owned Robert Meacham, people who have owned Devery Henderson. These guys are people who owned Michael Floyd this year. Ask them now how happy they were with that production. Devin Smith is excellent at the deep ball, but if you watch him on his short routes, he can catch them, but I haven't seen him make yards after the catch once. He doesn't seem particularly talented besides an ability to get downfield and kind of out muscle defenders to get to the ball. And that's, in terms of football in general, that's a good player to have on your team. But in terms of fantasy football, it's not somebody I'm looking to own. I have the same problem with Paul Richardson. So he's not really a guy I'm going to be looking to draft at all. Philip Dorsett is a guy who, like Duke Johnson, I hadn't watched a whole lot of. I was aware of him. I watched him, when Miami played, but I hadn't focused in on him. And I was fairly surprised by him. Before, I was kind of going off of, my opinion was based on what I'd heard from other people who had watched him. And, that's kind of what you get sometimes when you go off other people's opinions rather than doing your own research. Because I wouldn't have drafted Dorsett if I hadn't sat down and actually watched the tape this week on him, because I hadn't heard a whole lot of things that interested me in him. But after watching him, he's on my late round list. If I get him as a late second round pick, provided he doesn't go too late in the draft, I'm definitely interested. He's got I'm not going to sit here and do a whole breakdown on him, but he's got excellent catching ability, great awareness, good speed, and he's an all-around good player. I like him a lot. As for Nelson Ag, I have no opinion on him. There's zero tape available. I did not watch USC this year. I don't have anything to say about him. Hopefully there's, something shows up for him on Draft Breakdown. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go hunting. But I don't have an opinion on him at this time. As for Justin Hardy, this is absolutely a guy that's in my late round targets, second round. At some point, we're going to do a more in-depth look at him, because I think he's somebody that kind of needs to be done like that. But I think this is a guy that's going to kind of sneak his way up a lot of people's draft boards by the end of the season, by the end of the offseason. So if you're looking at Justin Hardy, or if you're doing drafts early and you can get him late, I would absolutely be snagging him up. He's got a lot of talent. I mean, he set the FBS record for receptions in a career. I think it was 387. It's insane, but he shows a lot, and I would be very interested in picking him up. And actually, it looks like we got one more question in while we've been doing the show. It's from FB Sniper, and it's, what are your thoughts on Tyler Eifert, McFadden, Latimer, Hyde, Terrence Williams, and Christian Michael? So he's trying to help me make the show a little bit longer, so I have a good, decent stuff to talk about. I like that. The first guy I'm going to hit on is McFadden, because to me, McFadden has zero value. Absolutely nothing. I think his best opportunity this offseason is to go somewhere else, get another 1-year deal, and maybe act in a committee. I have no interest in McFadden at all. Zero. In a non-IDP league, I'd take a 5th-round pick for McFadden, and I wouldn't think twice, just to get him off my roster. I would package up the 410 to move to the 406 to get rid of McFadden. Tyler Eifert. I mean, I've said it before. Tyler Eifert's one of my main buy low candidates this offseason for the few leagues I don't own him in. I think he absolutely deserved to be a first-round pick. He was a first-round rookie pick for a reason, but people not seeing him on the field right now, there's that recency bias. People think, well, I haven't seen him, so he hasn't done anything. Well, He was injured. He didn't play all season. But this whole offseason, the word was that he was going to be the number 2 option in that offense after AJ Green. And, that's good enough for me. Jermaine Gresham, I would take Eifert over Gresham in a heartbeat, and Gresham had a decent season. I think Gresham flirted with tight end 1 numbers the entire season. And if Eifert can, have that same role and get more targets because he's more talented, then I think he's top 5, top 6 tight end for me right now. Latimer, I wasn't huge on Latimer coming into the offseason, or not the offseason, coming out of the draft. He wasn't a guy I was real interested in drafting even before he went to the Broncos. Even if Welker leaves and Manning stays, he's still the number 3 option on that offense. If you can get him low and you buy him as a cheap prospect, I'm all for it. But I can't say a whole lot because I haven't seen enough of him competing against NFL competition. So a lot of this is going off my pre-draft analysis. But for right now, Latimer is not a buy for me, but he's not a sell for me either because I don't think you're going to get a whole lot for him. Carlos Hyde for me is a top 5 dynasty running back if you're doing a startup right now. I think he's gonna take hold of that running game in San Francisco. I think they're gonna stick to a power run game there, and I think he's never gonna look back. I think he's gonna be putting up running back 1 numbers for a good long while. And I think whatever you got to pay to get him, I think he's gonna be worth it. Terrence Williams. My thoughts on Terrence Williams are sell Terrence Williams. The hype on him, I don't know if you call it hype, but he just got off of 2 solid playoff performances in a row. Playoff games they're a lot more visible to people. A lot more people watch them rather than spreading what games they watch. And I think you'll be able to get a solid value for him. But to me, he's not a spectacular talent. There's not really anything he does that's all that special to me. I honestly, if Devin Street had beat him out in the preseason, I wouldn't have been shocked. I could easily see Cole Beasley passing him up in the offseason to be the number 2. I saw a lot more out of Cole Beasley this offseason and this postseason that impressed me than I did out of Terrence Williams. So if you can sell Terrence Williams and get decent value for him right now, I would absolutely do it. And the last guy is Christine Michael. Christine Michael's value increase is going to be highly dependent on what happens with Marshawn Lynch. I do think Lynch is going to be gone. I think he's going to move on in the offseason. And if that's the case, I think Michael has a very good chance to take the job. But at the same time, if you're out buying Christine Michael, I would also be trying to pick up Robert Turbin, because as good as Michael is, I would be hedging my bets and grabbing Turbin on the off chance that Turbin gets the job. Whoever starts there is going to have some serious value. And I like Christine Michael's talent a lot. I think he's an explosive runner, and I think with the chance, he could be a running back 1 easily. But if he doesn't get that opportunity, I think Robert Turbin can make a lot out of that as well. But I would absolutely be spending what I have to get Christine Michael on my team. And that's actually going to cover all of our questions for today. We'll go ahead and move on to the subreddit post discussions. And it's not as much a discussion as it is me talking to you about it, which is not as interesting, unfortunately. Sorry for all of y'all that have to sit here and listen to me run my mouth all by myself, but I was extremely happy with this rookie mock draft. We went almost double the amount of picks as any of the previous mock drafts, and none of the picks really jumped out to me as all that strange. Yeah. No, I mean, all of them seem fairly good fit for where they're at. Granted, I'm kind of praying this Melvin Gordon thing at 101 sticks, because that just means I get Todd Gurley or Amari Cooper at the later picks. But I really like that there was this much participation. There was also a lot of conversation in these. There was a lot of discussion of the picks, and I think that's where the subreddit has the most use, because anybody can go look at a rookie mock draft and say, well, I don't agree with those picks, but if that's where everybody else is picking, then I can formulate a strategy around that. But if you can go and ask people why they pick like that, or see why people's opinions are what they are, then you can expand your knowledge, or you can try and impart your knowledge to somebody else, or you can go argue with somebody like I did, because he and I disagreed about Melvin Gordon. But that's okay. I mean, as long as you're not swearing at each other, who cares? Have a discussion, have a disagreement. Y'all don't have to agree with each other. But hopefully this level of activity continues on with the mock startup drafts as well, because I mean, if we can make it to the 4th round of a rookie draft, then we should be able to make it to the 6th, 7th round of a startup draft. Because you don't have people digging for picks, digging for rookies that they don't know a whole lot about. Because you could tell by getting towards the end of it, the variety of people picking were definitely decreasing. Man, I wish I had more to talk about today. I didn't really prepare enough for just me. But I think that's going to kind of cover, my thoughts on the rookie mock draft. I guess we'll go into some quick information on the subreddit. I've seen a lot of stuff going on in the subreddit lately that there's a huge increase in activity, which I'm a huge fan of. Increase in discussion, increase in people asking for advice, and people giving solid advice, helpful advice, and I'm all about that. Because a lot of people are coming in without a clue of what they're doing. This is their first year in Dynasty, or they're just getting into it, and they're coming here for help, not for discussion. And I think it's awesome that we have people here that are willing to kind of impart their knowledge on people for really no benefit to themselves. So for y'all that are out there pretty much providing this information for free, good on you. I appreciate it. I know Dave appreciates it. Y'all are helping. Y'all are really the ones driving the activity in the sub. So just keep on killing it out there. I'm going to be putting up a post on the subreddit after this. I want your thoughts on the podcast. I want your most scathing criticisms. If there's stuff on the show that you like that we don't do often, or that we don't expand on enough, let us know. If there's parts of the podcast that you think are stupid and a waste of time, let us know. If you think I talk too long, let me know. I used to ask for feedback at the end of every show when we first started, and then I kind of just stopped asking because we weren't getting any feedback. But I'd like to get your feedback. If you don't want to post it publicly in the thread, send it to me in a private message. It's not going to hurt my feelings, even if it's mean and all of it says is I'm stupid and I don't know what I'm talking about, and that I shouldn't do it anymore. If you have to send that to me because that's how you feel, fine. But just let us know. I want to make this podcast better. I want to improve the quality of this every week we do it. I've tried to listen to other podcasts. I've tried to get better at talking because nobody wants to listen to a guy stumble over their words for an entire hour. I listen to myself do the podcast to see where I did stupid stuff, but it would be way easier if y'all could just point out where I did stupid stuff. But yeah, if y'all could do that, that would be really appreciated. For those of y'all that don't watch it on YouTube, the podcast is available on Stitcher and on iTunes. If you search the Dynasty Playbook, we'll be right there at the top. I guess I will finish off with my rant for the week. My rant for the week is I don't like talking by myself. So some people better show up to talk to me. So I'm lonely. And I didn't plan a good rant for this week because nothing's going on in any of my Dynasty leagues. And maybe that should have been my rant, that nothing's happening. And the activity is gone. But I ranted about activity last week. But it's probably going to make me mad all off season because half my leagues essentially die until the draft. And then they die again essentially until the preseason. And that's garbage. If you guys are in Dynasty leagues and you're not logging onto your league every couple of days minimum, why are you doing Dynasty? It's supposed to be like a year-round experience. That's why I got into Dynasty. I don't know why most of y'all did. I got into Dynasty because, I hated the fact that fantasy football was over at the end of the season. I hated the fact that, I saw these awesome rookies come in, and I knew they were going to be better next year, but I was going to have to spend whatever redraft pick to get them. And I loved the idea of getting to keep my players from year to year. So if you're not going to participate, if you're not going to trade and try and get these rookies or try and get rid of these rookies, and why do Dynasty? Why not just do redraft? Do it for 4 months out of the year and go on and do the exact same thing you did with Dynasty. But that was probably my laziest rant ever. But I get kind of tired of talking to myself, I guess. Like I said, let me know. Let us know what your thoughts are on the podcast. I'll put the thread up here shortly. And Dave does not have any parting shots for us because he's not here. So this has been the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty FF's dedicated podcast. I am your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF_Marine and on Twitter at Drew Dodson NFL. Y'all have a great day.